MilkCrate Listens. I'm here today to talk to you about how I kept my fledgling business alive during the pandemic. I'm a bit nervous about this speech, if you can't tell. I'm not used to giving planned keynote addresses to people who came here willingly. It's more of a rapid conversation and walk-in coolers to people I pay to listen to me. So this is quite an honor. Thank you. I wasn't sure how to lay this out for you today. I started looking at just kind of telling you my whole life story with no pictures or anything. It was just going to be a boring 60 minutes, and we're just going to keep it as dry as possible. Then I thought, well, let's jazz it up a bit, and maybe we'll create Steven's 5 pillars of resilience. After pillar 1, I wanted to put myself in the face. So we're not doing that. With the help of some photos and a little bit of how we got here and the adventures that we had in the pandemic, hopefully this will be a punchy keynote for everybody. Also, thanks to Instagram, we were able to kind of retrace our steps through the pandemic, kind of like a trauma time capsule, which was fun. Fun for everyone going through that. This speech, I'm going to try really hard to use we and us pronouns. The reason for this is MilkCrate is not just a me thing. It's a team sport for us. So towards the end, I'm going to shift to the perspective of myself because it's going to get a little bit more personal. But when I say we and us, it's just including the team of people that create with MilkCrate. We need to begin with some background. I graduated NAIT Culinary Arts, whoop whoop, in 2006. Photo of young me, look how impressionable. I know, so many mistakes. I knew I needed experience after I graduated, so I moved to Vancouver and crashed around the restaurant and hotel scene in the downtown core for a couple of years. I was there for the Olympics. It was incredible. Fun was had, lessons of love and loss were learned. Those stories are not for this speech, though. What a guy. After some time in Vancouver and teaching English as a second language in Taiwan, I returned to Edmonton. I was excited to be home. I maybe wasn't ready to be a chef, but I definitely knew I didn't want to cook someone else's food. After a couple of friendly contacts and some fast-paced interviews, I became the chef of River House in St. Albert. You recognize this building? I made it. This is it. It was an incredible learning experience and a great training ground for a young chef. I was able to make mistakes and have victories and kind of figure out what kind of chef I wanted to be. And it felt like I was making something incredible with the people that I was working with. Several years in, though, I felt lost, and the ownership of the restaurant started to fall apart. I wanted structure. I needed structure. I wanted to see if working in a corporate chain restaurant was maybe for me. It wasn't. But I made some incredible friendships and connections that would stay with me until today. After some time, I moved back into the After some time, I moved on, back into the wilderness of independent restaurants. I became the head chef of Chartier in Beaumont. This was an important step for me, actually being able to create something from scratch, build a kitchen, hire a team, create systems, and create a menu that was mine, not being told of what to do. It was incredible. I was able to really flex what I'd learned at St. Albert, in chain restaurants, and my time in Vancouver. It all kind of came to a head in Beaumont, which was exciting. Look how fun. Those first few years of Chartier were incredible. The restaurant had energy. We were pioneers on the edge of discovering how far we could push ourselves, the restaurant, and the small town that we resided in. Awards were given, milestones were hit, but sadly, as some of you know, nothing good lasts forever. After differing opinions on where the restaurant could go, and realizing that I would never have ownership in the restaurant or be compensated fairly, it was time for me to move on. I discovered an opportunity to branch out on my own, a small catering company. I would call it MilkCrate. as a nod to the objects that the hospitality industry uses so much more than milk. Milk crates act as stools, tables, bed frames, and shelves. They offer support. We wanted to be the metaphorical milk crate to your event. Super cute idea. It was super fun. Thank you. My parents, who I love very much, gave me a loan of $5,000 to help start this concept. Business licenses were drawn and inspections were beginning. MilkCrate was coming fast. Time and money was running out. My last shift at Chartier was February 12th. MilkCrate started February 27th. Me and a young cook began MilkCrate in the oddest of places, a drilling facility on the east end of town. It had an industrial cafeteria that was used to serve the oil and gas crew that worked in the facility. The kitchen had been abandoned for years, but the equipment was left behind. We simply had to cook meals for the workers, and the spot was ours. The price was right. Low startup costs and a very low overhead. The plan was to cook breakfast and lunch for the crew that worked in the facility and run catering services to the public in the evening. I can't stress enough that if it wasn't for this little kitchen, I would not be here talking to you today. More on that later. With a small social media account, we began to make our first moves. Small events here and there. We started to get the flow of what our lives would be like. 2 months into this adventure, we received a message from the owners of a cafe in the Epcor Tower downtown. They were looking for someone to take over their lease. We saw this as an excellent opportunity to help with our cash flow, and our business had a chance to get in front of the public audience. What could go wrong? Within 3 months, we went from a staff of 2 to 10. Our inventory grew by 400%. Don't do this. It's a bad idea. This was a free lesson on how not to scale and how not to rapidly grow. We were in over our heads, but it was too late to stop. We now had a catering, commissary kitchen, and a cafe. The small amount of money that I borrowed from my parents was being tested. The only thing we could do now, though, was to cook and work our way out of this situation. Oh, look how fun. Growing the woods. I'd like to take a moment here to share with you that those first 6 months of having a cafe, commissary, catering, kitchen, and that huge swell of growth was very challenging. And I'd like to just say a couple words on that. 2 locations, 20 minutes apart, different menus, different needs, prepping different food at both locations, confirming, executing, planning catering events, meeting guest names, running payroll, driving to and from each location each day. The only good thing was that both locations were closed Saturday, Sunday, so we did get a break if we weren't doing catering. It was difficult, and I was doing a bad job. I just wasn't ready for that. But the important thing was that we kept moving forward. In professional kitchens, your days can be filled with overwhelming moments. You can feel lost and scared. The best thing to do in overwhelming moments is to stop, breathe, and start to control the smallest thing you can, your breath. Just 1, now 2. Good. Now let's try to get a handle on something larger, a thought. What was that last order? Right, table 32, then table 8. Plus I have a table 16 coming up late. I need to figure out a way to bump it. Maybe I can take the food from table 23 and scooch this forward along. These little moments, these small, fast, quick moments keep restaurants and your dinners on time and together. If you ever get overwhelmed, go all the way back to your fundamentals. It will help, I guarantee it. As we started to get the flow of daily life, we started to get a handle on our systems and ordering. We became more efficient and patterns were starting to form. I was panicking less and things became manageable. We were even starting to fix some of the equipment that was broken and we inherited. Such a fun time under that fridge. As we approached December 2019, things started to get better. We had streamlined our little group and began to understand the flow of the cafe. We had a nice balancing of catering contracts and requests. The plan was to close for 2 weeks for a Christmas break and start 2020 with fresh eyes. We made a 1 year in February. It was, kind of a nice milestone for us. And then March. This fucking month. Within 24 hours, our guests left the downtown core. All catering was canceled or postponed. Tension and panic were in the air. We were staring down the barrel of the worst disaster that could happen in the hospitality industry. However, we knew it was coming. Watching the news since January, we could track where this was going and how others were coping. The data was right there, we just had to absorb it. Watching how restaurants in Europe began pivoting and scrambling showed us what to do when COVID-19 arrived in our city. On March 16th, we watched masked people wheel swivel chairs with computers mounted on top run to elevators. It looked like the tower was being looted. The pandemic was here, and despite trying to study data, it still felt sudden and scary. We had 3 conversations that day. Pardon me. Just want, once to start talking. We had 3 conversations that day. First conversation was with our landlord. Don't worry, don't panic. You'll be fine here, just stay open. The positive relationship that we built with our guests and building management allowed us to stay open without the financial stress of rent for 2 years. The relationships that you create can't open doors, but the relationships that you nurture can help keep those doors open. I'll forever be grateful to all the people that helped us with this. The second conversation was with our staff. I'm not going to lay anyone off. There is relief coming from the government, and if you want it, go get it. But if you want to stay, we're going to cook for our jobs. All ideas are welcome. The only bad idea is closing. While I had some ideas of what we could do, our team members came up with incredible ideas. Some of them worked, others didn't. But what we were doing was running tiny little experiments and collecting data for 2 years, seeing which ideas worked and which ideas didn't work. This helped us avoid some mistakes in this present day. I also made a promise to myself. These people were part of our team and are under my ownership. They are my responsibility. While this wasn't the healthiest mindset, just people, and they do have jobs, I don't own them, but I did feel responsible for them. I needed to give myself more than just a room to fight for. I wanted to fight for the people I cared about, and it helped. I also realized that I and MilkCrate were in the position of not having a huge staff. I didn't have a service team that was just sat around and watched in the empty dining room. Everyone that we had was able to pivot into new roles. I was fortunate for this. There are much bigger restaurants that simply could not move as quickly as us. The Titanic couldn't avoid the iceberg, but a speedboat could. Maybe a dinghy. We're the dinghy. We were also already offering everything in disposables. This was not a hard pivot. At one point, our seating area just became another prep area where cookie kits were assembled. This event that we were all experiencing together was not going to end soon. While relief was coming from governments and our overhead costs were relieved, we were still not bringing in enough money to take care of our remaining costs, food and labor. Our guests went online, so we did too. The launch of our online cooking classes, what started off as an iPhone in a coffee mug with FaceTime, quickly became a full-blown show with lighting, microphones, and a corporate Zoom account. We also created a YouTube channel to show people how to cook simple classics at home, as well as how to cook Thanksgiving one-pan meals that we supplied ingredients for. Holiday parties, work meetings, families connecting all around the world would meet in my small, recently well-lit kitchen. We would cut between cameras, share stories, and in 90 minutes, create meals made with love and care. We would either supply ingredients to be picked up from grocery stores and in some cases deliver them ourselves. Gas was cheaper, there was no one on the roads. It was a great time to zip around the city. Sorry. We also organized an annual event with ATB, connecting with their clients with customers in smaller towns to cook with agents in Calgary and Edmonton. One of my favorite events that we continue to do. Lesson plans were made, recipes were shared. My wife had to hide in the bedroom of our cozy apartment and listen to me make the same dumb jokes over and over. I'm pretty sure there are a couple lessons that she could do by herself. The only downside to this much cooking at home was we ran the risk of eating beef Wellington and risottos 5 nights in a row. It was exhausting. You don't know the pain I've seen. These cooking classes saved our business. The ability to offer something new and exciting to our guests of all ages and skills, both with tech and in the kitchen, was such a rewarding experience. It was clear that the world would never be the same, and because of our creativity and flexibility, we were able to stay in the fight just a little bit longer. Yes. We're still awake? We're doing okay here? Yeah, great. Mental health. Mental health is being taught more and more these days, which is incredible. During the early months of the pandemic, it was clear that the mental health for everyone was going to be tested. While I can't speak for the experiences of teachers, lawyers, doctors, and nurses, I can empathize with the cooks, servers, and dishwashers and what they were going through. I realized that there was no real way that our industry was getting mental health information. I had just completed a mental health first aid course right before the pandemic and decided to use it to help our industry. We created MilkCrate Listens. It is an area on our webpage that is dedicated to answering questions from a mental health first aid perspective. With my experience in the industry and knowledge of how to approach stressful situations, we began helping people who reached out. Anything from how to deal with a boss who's a jerk, to asking for raises, or even thinking about leaving the industry. With participants' consent and agreed and guaranteed anonymity, we shared our responses on our Instagram page. It helped promote the conversation and let people know that they were not alone. We are a small concept, but if we can make space for mental health in our workplace, on our webpage, and on our social media accounts, imagine what bigger groups could do for this message. We used MilkCrate Listens to hold interviews with chefs across Canada as check-ins to see how they were handling the pandemic, social changes, and managing their own mental health. Some stories were inspiring, others led to heartbreak. But the important thing is that we were bringing the industry into the light. We have been running MilkCrate Listens now for over 2 years, and we have learned a lot. I would like to share some key takeaways that we've learned from those first 2 years. Mental health is universal. However, the way it is framed for each industry is different. Oil and gas, it's very much framed towards letting men know it's okay to talk about feelings, which it is. In the hospitality industry, it's framed as a balancing act. But no one is trained on how to do that. They are told to leave their personal stuff at the door and just focus on their tasks. How? No one has challenged the managers on what techniques can be used to aid in this mysterious task. It is because they themselves don't know. There are techniques that can help regulate these feelings. But if mental health in the hospitality industry is going to get better, restaurants and restaurateurs are going to have to start taking it seriously as rolling out a new dish or a new menu. People want to talk about these big ideas and philosophy. The most boring thing to talk about with a chef is dinner service. Let me guess, you got steamrolled. The front of house team just doesn't understand. Something broke, someone showed up late. Boring. It's exciting when you first hear it, but it quickly dulls down. People want to know more about your and our experiences, how our creative process works, what led to X, how we look at leadership and organization. Be open to these conversations. Men. A rough breakdown of gender in professional kitchens in North America looks like 75% of kitchen staff is male. While there are a lot of reasons for this, there are women who are out cooking all of us. Our time of toxic bro kitchen culture must stop. This is not the drug-fueled 70s and 80s anymore. If we want to be taken seriously, we need to become more professional and more inclusive. Even just decent. Culinary empires can be destroyed by one truthful tweet. What you do and say now matters. Act like it. If you are hearing this and this resonates with you, as a place you might be working in and are afraid to speak up, there are resources out there that can help. Please don't be silent. MilkCrate Listens is one of the things I'm most proud of and would probably not be on this stage without it. I encourage all of you hearing this to take time to open yourself up to talking about mental health to anyone. You do not need to be an expert, and if you make mistakes in the conversation, which you will do, it's going to be okay. We need to start somewhere, and it can start with you. Our world is connected. There is no denying that a tweet or post can change how your day is going to flush out. During the pandemic, social media very much became a double-edged sword. One, it helped promote the thing that we were working on. Two, it did bring a lot of stress, waiting on updates or bringing to light how messed up and wrong the world can feel. We all waited for people to do the right things, but were always disappointed when the wrong things were said or chosen. I made the decision not to engage too much online with how messed up the whole situation was. No one was coming to save us. From the government's bad calls, delivery apps' ridiculous charges, or any of the other things that seem to send people and chefs into death spirals, we would be our own superheroes. We would have to save ourselves. Getting worked up and yelling into the void would not help us or our guests. Distractions can be nice, but the siren's call of social media can lead to a warped vision of reality, wear down your mental health and resiliency. If you create something that requires social media, please be mindful of what you are adding to the conversation. We kept hustling. The cooking classes, MilkCrate Listens, were just the tip of the spear. We ran burger competitions that worked similar to drive-thrus. You show up, get 2 burgers, go home, eat and share the burgers, text us which one was your favorite. We announced the winner on social media. It was a lot of fun, and it was great to do. So far, MilkCrate is still undefeated. We hosted outdoor dinners. With the help of Taste Alberta and other sponsors, we were able to create memorable and incredible outdoor dining experiences, literally in the most open-air locations, farmers' fields. The statement of making something from nothing has never been more true than during these events. While the oil and gas industry took a bit of a pounding during the pandemic, the crew that we were cooking for in our commissary kitchen shrank but didn't leave us. We kept cooking for them, and with the extra time our cooks had, they created. That little commissary kicked ass during the pandemic and has recently become one of our biggest assets. They made pies, freshly baked goods, salts, preserves, jams, cookie kits, one-pan turkey meals, perfect for restricted holiday gatherings, take and bake items. We sold gift certificates, and during the holidays, we jumped onto the trend of hot chocolate bombs. We even found a small vegan startup that needed a kitchen to prep in. We rented out our commissary kitchen to them on our off hours so they could start production. All of this against the backdrop of keeping our cafe open to the brave people who couldn't work from home and were in their offices. Daily features and baking were constantly being produced and refreshed as we tried to keep our cafe from becoming stale and boring to our guests. The only bad idea was closing. 2 years of this, pushing, driving, creating, and waiting. Just trying to stay alive until the storm breaks and we can return to something that looks sustainable. As proud as I am of everything that we've created, these things were not saving our business, just keeping us alive. That's when the burnout came in. 2 years of, you know what, I'm just gonna quickly grab a glass of water. Two years of online cooking classes, a dead downtown core. Our creative solutions were starting to become dull. Our sales were being balanced with subsidy checks from the government. The COVID debt was getting bigger. This life and work were not enjoyable anymore. January 2022 was hard, really hard. Sales were at an all-time low. Tension was everywhere, from news stories to social media to friends and family. And for the first time, I seriously was considering calling it quits, throwing in the towel and just walking away. What was the point? This dumpster fire. Emojis help. They make it silly and less scary. This is the January that I'm referring to. All those little spikes are cooking classes as well. Back then, and to some degree now, the future of our hospitality industry looks bleak. Our industry will be ripped apart by restaurant chains, delivery apps, high rents, labor and food shortages. The public has been eating substandard food out of cardboard boxes for 2 years, and they paid premiums for it. Restaurants will be pushed to their limits by social pressure and suppliers, while guests demand their food to be faster, cheaper, and more substantial. Chefs, people that we all look up to, will start closing their restaurants, and in the darkest scenarios, start killing themselves. What's the point of this? It will never get better. Just quit. I was eating like crap, drinking too much, was grumpy all the time. Emails were just being ignored. I started making mistakes with my organization, my time, nothing mattered, everything sucked. I may take a moment here to talk about burnout. Burnout is rough. It's a crippling mental block that will corrupt you and your soul. It's a mess of many little things that make you crash. Much like its creation, however, its recovery is also many little things. Small victories, being seen, being validated, all help put the fires in your head out. For me, it was my therapist telling me that I had done enough. I should be proud of what I did and how far I've come. Just hearing that, A, made me cry. B, I felt lighter immediately. I felt like I could take on one or two more things, and from that, I could keep adding one more thing onto the pile. I can slowly get back together. I was getting better. It was getting better. Things were going to be okay, one day at a time. The team kept MilkCrate lurching forward into February, then March. After therapy sessions, talking with my wife and family, I slowly got better. We started gaining traction. Guests were returning to their offices. Catering requests started coming in. There was change in the air. We started winning. Then COVID ripped through our entire restaurant. Our whole team got wiped out. Within 3 weeks, we all got it, and we were left scrambling to cover shifts while our staff recovered. We joked that there could be a day where there is no crew at the commissary kitchen or at the cafe, and Steve would have to drive between the two locations cooking lunch and breakfast. It did happen. Wasn't funny at all. And we made it through, though. We kept pushing forward. Our staff got healthier. They came back to work. The scheduled shifts started to get filled up again. We kept solving problems. The only bad idea was closing. Our team had been through so much. We had breathed new faces in and out of our operations, but our core team was still with us, and we could build something with that. We knew we had to slim down our menu to accommodate a bigger crowd of diners that were in a bit more of a rush. We kept tinkering and tweaking. One of the emails I had let slide during my burnout came back up. It was an email from someone who works in a funeral home. They were looking for a caterer for one of their funerals. I'd never thought about catering a funeral before, but I was excited to learn more. When I read the email and took the meeting with the funeral home director, I really wasn't expecting a very sharp, good-looking man to show up. I was kind of envisioning a bit of a crypt keeper who really didn't understand what emails were. But I was blown away by how professional the young people that I met were. Our conversation about one funeral led into a conversation about all the funerals for 4 locations, twice a day, 6 days a week. Yeah, was not ready, but we got there. The opportunity to celebrate lives and attempt to make the worst day of someone's life a little bit more comfortable seemed like a really good fit for the empathetic company that we were becoming. Remember that rapid expansion I mentioned at the beginning? I'm a bad student, and I did it again. Within 30 days, we grew our catering team by 100% and added some support bodies to our cafe to free myself up for any fires that could and definitely did pop up. We had to hire a courier to help move food around the city. Things were changing fast, but this time it was different. We had a stronger understanding of what we were getting ourselves into. It was hard, but we would not fail. We could not fail. You only get one funeral. We had to get it right every time. We were able to afford new equipment like meat slicers, Cambros, and a new reach-in fridge. We changed how we communicate, and slowly we started to change our corporate structure. Even being able to say corporate structure is incredible. While we have the momentum of a massive windfall in our sales, there's still so much more that we need to do. An example of this happened the other day. One of our talented team members asked where MilkCrate is heading. Fortunately, I just looked him dead in the eye and said, I have no fucking clue. But I'm going to find out. Since MilkCrate began in a hurry, then expanded into a pandemic, I haven't been able to look at where our company became or where it's heading. I do know it's mine, and that we have created the pieces of an incredible, some might say unconventional business. But as we start to stabilize, I get to take all the lessons I've learned and restart MilkCrate. To be able to to restart MilkCrate and to be able to build it again to handle any and all upcoming challenges. Our adventure is just beginning. Throughout this speech writing process, I've been able to reflect on what we did, but also what this could all mean. If you'd be so kind, I have some final thoughts I'd like to share with you. I was an average student and an average cook. I'm not the best chef in the city and probably not in this room. But what our team accomplished proves cooks and people that are in the hospitality industry can be an asset to you and our world. The urgency, the care, and the creative thinking applied to any situation is unrivaled. While the hospitality industry is going to go through so many more changes in the next 25 years, that fighting mentality is not going anywhere. The hustle, the passion, the spirit of moving heaven and earth to get food into the hands of complete strangers is something to be cherished and even celebrated. The odds are against anyone in the hospitality industry. More and more people are getting out of the industry than joining. This is partly because there are student servers, bartenders, and cooks finishing their schooling, and they finished during the pandemic. They moved on. Since no one wanted to come into the restaurant world while lockdowns were still ongoing, these jobs and roles were left unfulfilled. This is starting to change as more and more young people enter the restaurant world, but we have such a long way to go. It is on the leadership of restaurants now to maintain the momentum by changing their old practices. It will be hard, but it can happen, and it starts by listening. You are not born with the tools of being a chef. They are earned through a crucible of fire and trauma. With enough care, a balance can be created that can inspire anyone to follow you into a pandemic and survive. I hope I was able to articulate this to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. How did we do that? All right. Time trials worked. It's a very good question. The question was how many people on my team I would classify as neurodivergent. At this point, I don't have anyone that would classify as neurodivergent, but it wouldn't stop me from hiring someone that it would apply. Can you repeat the first half of that question? The question is, how do I keep my passion up because of all the losses that we just took there? I'm an Oilers fan. You know, every year we just hope. Love getting a dig in. How I keep my passion up is I do love what I do. I do love being in the position I'm in. If I was a cook or a chef of a restaurant that wasn't mine, I might have a different story. But the fact that I got to lead and change and I'm in control of what I can do is something that helps. Also, I care about people and I want to keep trying to do something, and it's becoming to me more clear that while I love guests and the money that they give me, I also care so much about the people that are cooking in this field. And I believe that people like myself and other people that speak about mental health in our industry need to stay around and help change that right now. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Yes. I think you're only going to get one book, though. So the question was, how do we kept pivoting and if we made any forecasts for those plans? Because what it was a quick timeline was we had a little catering company of me and a guy Then we grew into a cafe, and then we had the guy, and we added some people to him. Then we added some people to the cafe, and then we kept moving. Then the pandemic happened, and then we grew into other things, all blind. There were some things that again, if we were as big as a Cactus Club with like tens of thousands of followers, it would be different because we'd have more eyes on us. But when we started the pandemic, we only had 500 followers on Instagram. We now have 3,000, but it also gave us a chance to make mistakes and like, yeah, we'll try something, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Everyone was distracted. And we used that as kind of a smokescreen. There's nothing deceitful about it. It was just, hey, this photo competition of people taking milk crates and taking them outside or doing themed things isn't working for us because at that point, guests were coming back and we didn't have time. And also, no one was taking photos of milk crates. Did that answer your question? Awesome. That's right. We need so much more. That's a great question. So just try and say it back to you. Question was, you have $5,000. How did you start? Because that's not nearly enough to start anything. That the Cougar kitchen, the commissary kitchen that we found, the kit where we started, that had all the equipment in it. It had a range, an oven, a dishwasher, all the pots and pans, smallwares, walk-in fridge, walk-in freezer. It had everything. It was a steal. It was incredible. And again, I know opportunities like this don't happen, but once they show up, you can't ignore them, right? So that started, and that $5,000 pretty much just got me a wholesale order. So I quickly ran there and then came back and we started cooking. Then when we took over the cafe, we through our leasing, we grabbed some leases and some loans that would help us with our purchasing of the cafe and also help buy all the things that we inherited from the cafe that was there before us. So again, we kept walking into situations. We're just now starting to buy our own things or get rid of things that we don't need anymore and start to become a little bit more real. And it's a weird experience too, because when you start a restaurant, you think, I'm going to start it with brand new equipment and all these things and move it in. And you should. You should always buy new. It's incredible because it's never going to break. But in these situations, walked in, well, I have a Vitamix. It kind of works sometimes. Let's put a toothpick here and it works now. So you kind of have to keep hustling. But again, it was a fortunate situation. But I do recommend you keep your eyes out for the unconventional, right? Did that answer your question? Awesome. I'm coming to you. There's someone up here with his hand up. Do you want to tell us the idea? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Trying to think of how I can answer this question for you. How to be passionate about a project that you're not passionate about, and what to do with an idea that you think is good, but maybe is not for you. Pass it off. You're in a trade school. I'm sure there's someone here that would love to hear an idea like this. Or if you have the means, bankroll it. Put your name on it as a founder and see if it happens that way. Or find people that you can talk to a bit more about it. There's a lot of entrepreneur groups and stuff like that that you could network in. How did that all land? Did that move the dial for you? Yeah, I'm sorry. They all, you know what? Let's chat after this. Thanks. My friend. Yeah. Hmm. That's right. Yeah. Great question. Question was, where do I want to see MilkCrate going? Uh, kind of the same sentiment at the end of my speech there is, I still don't know. I do know that we need to keep growing it. Right now, the funeral home business is keeping us very busy, but we're starting to outgrow our original commissary kitchen. So we will be looking at probably expanding into a new space. Um, the cafe that we have, still in the downtown core, still not a lot of people there, but there are some ideas that we have that we might start exploring with opening for dinner or becoming a pop-up restaurant where we can change our theme every month or introduce new chefs and try something there. One of the things I want to do in the next coming weeks is pretty much leave town for 48 hours, lock myself in a cabin, and just kind of write all these things down onto a whiteboard and start to map out a 5-year plan. Because I haven't been thinking in years. I've been thinking in days, weeks, and maybe a month at a time. To be able, like, we just re-signed our lease downtown, and they asked, like, the thing is 5 years. Like, 5 years. I'm going to be 41. What does that even look like? So it was a strange thinking, but a fun thought experiment. Did that answer your question? Thank you. I'm going to go. We'll come back to you. Hi. Oh, oh, really? Try. I think it's, yeah. It should be just MilkCrate or, oh, MilkCrate and, yeah, Eat at MilkCrate. Yeah. Try Eat at MilkCrate. Eat, EAT, MilkCrate. And then we had a question in the back. We hire apprentices. We do like to pay people. Um, go on. Okay. Absolutely. We have apprentices that join us, and we try and nurture them and move with them through their time here at Nate. The apprentice program right now is a little in flux, but I've hired one, two, I believe I have 4 Nate graduates with me right now from culinary and 1 apprentice from a team of 8, which is pretty cool. Okay. What do you mean when you say sponsorship? I don't know if you saw my sales reports there. They were not great. um, I don't want to say no because I always like the idea of sponsoring things. I know that MilkCrate wants to put its name on its own innovative reward system. Yeah, yeah, we want to focus on community building. How sponsoring an event like Pub Night doesn't really sound like with our brand, but not if it's a good idea, we definitely want to hear about it. We try not to say no to a lot of things. That's how we ended up with funerals, which again, incredible.
Let me unmute so they can hear me. So just one thing first. Chelsea says, what an awesome and inspiring presentation. But she was so looking forward to this week, and it didn't disappoint her. It was well worth it, she said.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you. And then Carrie asks, are you still doing the cooking classes now that the pandemic is over?
Yes, we are slowly going to be coming back into them. We took a pause. We were calling it, it was cooking class. We were teachers. If teachers were taking the summer off, we were going to take the summer off. We'll be bringing them back probably in the fall, but it'll be in a bit more of a changed setup, only because as fun as it was to like stack an entire week of classes, it wasn't really good for me to like work, then come home and focus on that. We have the tech, we will keep doing it, but right now we're stabilizing our new catering clients. We'll be able to focus on cooking classes in the future. So keep your eye on our social media channel. Were you taking notes? All right. No, that's great. Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. A fast food idea centered around halal food. Absolutely. And you're starting to see that even more in just a regular restaurant. Halal options are very much more prominent up there with gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, all these new ways of eating. Not new ways. I mean, halal's been around for forever. But it's becoming more popular and people are being able to adapt to it more. So creating a fast food restaurant centered around halal proteins is a really good idea. I would recommend not starting it here and going to where 1 billion Muslims might be, and you might have a bit more of attraction. Here, I fear that you would get washed away in the hamburgers that we all love. Mhm. Mhm. I do. So what's stopping you from pursuing this? Oh, okay, great. No, I think it's a really cool idea, and I think you should pursue it, especially if you've got a clear vision for it, and it's obviously coming from a place that you care about. Um, yeah, that's a great idea, man. Go for it, and please keep me posted. How we doing? Oh, yes, sure. um, One of the things that I really want to try and do is an hour before I was here, I was still washing dishes, which an owner should be ready to do. However, my communication to our catering team and to our cafe team still aren't there. I'm still running back and forth between the two. I have a chef at our catering company, but I still haven't had an honest 3-hour conversation with him about expectations and reality. My team at the cafe also, while I love them all very much, none of them really want to have a manager role or title. So we've kind of delegated all things to everyone, but I still feel like I'm managing things I don't need to manage. I have the fortunate opportunity of being very well staffed right now. But again, I still haven't been able to think like a CEO of a company. I'm still thinking of myself as a chef, which means that my hands should be covered in flour and gunk all the time. But I'm now starting to try and balance my time between the two. Trying to get back into online cooking classes will allow me to balance my time a little bit more, but I need to build that structure. And because we're still putting out fires, I'm not able to. Did that answer your question? Thank you. Amazing. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know this was way big. This comfort zone.
It's way over here. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everyone. If you have any more questions or want to come talk with me, you can find me here right now, or I'm usually at the cafe in the downtown core around 10 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Mondays through Fridays. Come find me.
Awesome. Just a reminder, tomorrow we have Bill Karamuzzi here with the Chief Maji. And Wednesday, Sam Jenkins, the managing partner at Punch Card Solutions, is joining us to talk about outputs and outcomes.